Audiobook Top, your new home for the finest selection of audiobooks available anywhere.
Ah, Florence. The very name, even now, conjures up images of sun-drenched piazzas, the scent of cypress, and history breathing from every stone. For young Lucy Honeychurch arriving at the pension Bertolini, Florence was to be a dream made manifest, a grand tour, a curated experience of culture and refinement, chaperoned, of course, by her ever-vigilant cousin, Charlotte Bartlett. They had booked rooms with a view, you see, a promise of the Arno, of ancient bridges, of the very soul of Italy unfurling before their eyes. But life, my friends, often has a mischievous way of rearranging our carefully laid plans. Upon arrival, the dream dissolved into a grim reality. Their promised rooms, instead of facing the river, stared mournfully into a narrow, suffocating courtyard. A Florentine slum, Charlotte declared with a shudder, a place where laundry hung limp and the air was thick with the mundane realities of life, not the sublime vistas they had crossed continents to behold. Poor Lucy, quieter in her disappointment, felt the sting of it deeply, a subtle disillusionment that pricked at the edges of her cultured expectations. She longed for that view, that breath of space, that sense of connection to the city's heart. Charlotte, ever the pragmatist beneath her veneer of genteel helplessness, began her characteristic flurry of polite but firm complaints to the unsuspecting landlady. It was an impossible situation, she insisted, utterly unacceptable for two English ladies of their standing. The view was paramount, but the landlady, Signora Bertolini, merely shrugged, offering the timeless Italian shrug that conveys both sympathy and utter powerlessness. The pension was full, nothing could be done. Just as the English ladies were bracing themselves for an evening of genteel suffering and polite martyrdom, a new element entered the fray, quite unexpectedly. From a nearby table in the dining room, a voice boomed, startling in its unvarnished directness. "I have a room with a view, and my son has one too. We would be delighted to exchange." Now imagine, if you will, the precise moment that this utterly unconventional offer landed in the refined atmosphere of the Bertolini. This was Mr. Emerson, a man whose ideas, much like his attire, were often described as unsuitable. Beside him sat his son, George, a young man of brooding intensity, whose silence spoke volumes to those willing to listen. To Charlotte, this was not an act of kindness, it was an act of profound social transgression. The very fabric of polite society, woven with threads of unspoken rules, of subtle hints and delicate negotiations, was suddenly ripped apart. To simply offer to swap rooms, unbidden, to strangers, was an act of almost shocking impropriety. Her face, I dare say, must have been a study in horrified crimson. "Oh no, Mr. Emerson," she gasped, her voice a thin, reedy protest. "We couldn't possibly. It's too kind, but it would be too much trouble." She clutched at Lucy's arm, as if protecting her from the sheer audacity of the proposal. For Charlotte, life was a delicate dance of propriety, where one accepted generosity only after a suitable show of reluctance, and never, ever, from people so decidedly unconventional. The Emersons were a strange pair, intellectual, outspoken, and possessed of a disconcerting honesty that bypassed all the comforting layers of social artifice. But Mr. Emerson was not a man to be deterred by polite evasion. "Nonsense," he declared, his eyes twinkling with a practical, almost philosophical amusement. "What is trouble, Miss Bartlett? We are all travelers, aren't we? And a view is a view. You deserve it. Why should you suffer a courtyard when the Arno flows just outside our windows?" His words, though simple, carried a weight, a challenge to the very notion that one should endure discomfort for the sake of appearances. Lucy, meanwhile, found herself in a curious state. Part of her, the well-bred, chaperoned part, echoed Charlotte's horror. This was not how things were done. It was awkward, embarrassing, and deeply uncomfortable. But another part, a nascent, rebellious flicker within her, felt a strange pull towards the Emersons' blunt honesty. There was a directness, a lack of pretense, that, for all its social awkwardness, felt refreshingly real. A part of her yearned for that view, not just for the beauty, but for what it represented, an escape from the suffocating courtyard of expectation. The debate raged, not with raised voices, but with the quiet fury of conflicting ideologies. Charlotte appealed to the landlady, hoping for an ally in her quest for decorum. Signora Bertolini, caught between the English notions of propriety and the Emersons' no-nonsense generosity, was utterly bewildered. Mr. Beebe, the jovial clergyman also staying at the pension, arrived just in time to observe the unfolding drama with a bemused smile. He, at least, understood the Emersons' peculiar brand of Christian charity, untainted by social niceties. Eventually, after much internal wrangling and external protestations, and driven by a peculiar mix of their own discomfort and Mr. Emerson's unwavering conviction, the ladies relented. Not graciously, mind you, but with the air of martyrs accepting an unspeakably difficult burden. The rooms were swapped, and there it was, the view. The moment Lucy stepped onto the balcony of her new room, it was as if a curtain had been torn away from her inner world. The Arno, shimmering under the Florentine sky, stretched out before her, its ancient bridges gracefully spanning the water. The distant hills, soft with the coming evening, beckoned with a sense of boundless possibility. It wasn't just a picturesque scene, it was a revelation. This was more than just a change of scenery, you see. This was the hook of the chapter, the view that would, in time, change everything. It wasn't merely the physical panorama that captured Lucy's gaze, but the new perspective that Mr. Emerson's audacious act had forced upon her. He had, with a simple offer, challenged her ingrained notions of politeness, of class, of what was done and not done. He had shown her a world where genuine kindness trumped superficial etiquette, where directness could be a virtue, and where the human heart, if allowed, could connect across the chasm of social convention. That view, that glorious, sun-kissed vista of Florence, became a symbol, not just of beauty, but of a budding awakening within Lucy. It was the first tremor, the gentle crack in the carefully constructed facade of her Edwardian existence. From this moment on, she would be subtly, irrevocably altered. The Emersons, these strange, inconvenient people, had, with their unusual generosity, thrown open a window not just to the Arno, but to a vast, untamed landscape within Lucy herself. And as she stood there, absorbing the beauty, a seed of rebellion, of independent thought, began to quietly, gently take root. The journey had truly begun. Ah, Florence. The very name, it shimmers with art and history, doesn't it? A city of whispers and secrets, where even the stones seem to hum with tales of beauty and passion. But for some, for many perhaps, it was merely a destination, a box to be ticked on a meticulously planned itinerary, a series of pre-approved sites to be dutifully observed, much like one might consult a railway timetable. Our tale begins precisely here, not amidst the grandeur of the Duomo or the sun-drenched Uffizi, but in the rather less picturesque confines of the Pension Bertolini. Picture it a late afternoon, the air still holding the day's warmth, a gentle scent of foreign spices, and something indefinably Romanesque drifting in through an open window. And there, at a table, two English ladies, prim and proper, embarked upon the ritual of the evening meal. Miss Lucy Honeychurch, young and as yet unformed, possessed a quiet intensity beneath her demure exterior. She was, you might say, a receptacle waiting to be filled, though she herself might not have known it. Beside her sat her cousin, Miss Charlotte Bartlett, a woman forged, it seemed, from the very anxieties of English propriety. Charlotte was, in short, a born chaperone, her very presence a bulwark against the unexpected, the spontaneous, the utterly un-English. Their opening gambit, their very first lament, was over a matter of profound importance, at least to them, the view, or rather, the lack thereof. They had been promised a room, 2 rooms, to be precise, with a view of the Arno, a vista of the Golden City spread out beneath the Tuscan sky. Instead, they faced a dingy courtyard, a rather unromantic patch of wall. A trifle, you might think, but for Charlotte it was an affront, a dereliction of duty, a crack in the carefully constructed facade of their continental adventure. The guidebook, that sacred Baedeker, had promised one thing, and life, in its inconvenient truthfulness, had delivered another. And then, as if summoned by the very discord of their disappointment, they appeared. From the depths of the pension's dining room, from behind the very curtain of conventionality, emerged 2 figures who would, quite unwittingly at first, set a match to Lucy's carefully constructed world: Mr. Emerson and his son George. Now, Mr. Emerson was not a man one easily categorized. He possessed a peculiar directness, an almost childlike earnestness that bordered on the alarming for those accustomed to the polite circumlocutions of English society. His son, George, was quieter, brooding, a young man whose eyes seemed to hold a world of unspoken questions. They were, in the parlance of the time, different, unconventional. Uncouth, Charlotte might have muttered, had she dared. Their entrance was unremarkable, but their words, oh, their words! They fell upon the quiet hum of the dining room like stones dropped into a still pond. Mr. Emerson, bless his honest, unfiltered soul, had overheard the lady's predicament. And what was his solution? Not a polite shrug, not a sympathetic tut, but a simple, startling offer: we have rooms with a view. We could exchange. Imagine the scene! Charlotte, stiffening, her entire being recoiling from the sheer audacity, the impropriety of it all. To accept such a favor from strangers, from men. It was unthinkable, a breach of every unspoken rule of travel and social interaction. Her mind, a veritable fortress of convention, immediately began constructing walls against this foreign invasion of frankness. The offer, to her, wasn't an act of kindness, but a challenge, an affront to her meticulously maintained sense of order. Lucy, however, was different. Though her manners were impeccable, though she had been trained in the subtle arts of English reticence, something stirred within her. A tiny, almost imperceptible tremor of curiosity, a flicker of something beyond mere politeness. The absurdity of Charlotte's distress, the simple, undeniable logic of Mr. Emerson's proposal, it created a faint dissonance in her perception. Her Baedeker might tell her where the sights were, but it offered no counsel on how to navigate this human exchange, this startling glimpse of genuine, unvarnished helpfulness. For you see, this, my friends, is where our journey truly begins. Not in the grand piazza, but in this quiet dining room, where a simple offer of kindness sparks a much larger debate. The Baedeker, for all its meticulous detail, could never account for the human element, for the unexpected generosity, the uncomfortable truth that sometimes, the most profound experiences come not from following a map, but from veering wildly off course. This chapter, this introduction, is precisely about that. It's about the narrow confines of expectation, the protective shell of Englishness that people like Charlotte carry with them, almost as heavy as their steamer trunks. And it's about the gentle, insistent pressure of life, of people, of a new place, trying to pry open that shell. It's about the choice, conscious or unconscious, to merely look at a view, or to truly see it, to feel its presence, to allow it to seep into your very bones, even if it means stepping into an unfamiliar, perhaps even scandalous, territory. Mr. Emerson and George, with their bluntness and their unsettling honesty, were the first cracks in Lucy's carefully constructed world. They were the first note of a different song, a tune that played not from the predictable pages of a guidebook, but from the raw, vibrant heart of Florence itself. And in that initial discomfort, that initial recoil, lay the seeds of an awakening. An invitation, perhaps, to look beyond the carefully curated facade of tourism, beyond the Baedeker, and into the unpredictable, thrilling, and sometimes terrifying landscape of the human soul. Our story begins, as many do, with an arrival in a land of promise, steeped in history and bathed in a light quite unlike the pallid skies of England. Two English ladies, Miss Lucy Honeychurch and her elder cousin and chaperone, Miss Charlotte Bartlett, alighted from their carriage at the Bertolini in Florence. Their hearts, or at least Charlotte's, thrummed with the expectation of beauty, of art, of that most coveted of luxuries, a room with a view. The promise, alas, was a fickle thing. Having explicitly requested, nay, insisted upon, rooms overlooking the Arno, the very essence of Florentine romance, they found themselves ushered into a realm of beige walls and oppressive proximity. Their windows, two paltry apertures, gazed not upon the silver ribbon of the river, nor the stately Ponte Vecchio, but rather into the dark, echoing maw of an inner courtyard, where linen hung mournfully and the occasional scullery boy passed like a phantom. A room without a view. For Miss Bartlett, it was not merely an inconvenience, it was a profound injustice, a personal slight against the very ideals of English tourism. It was, to her precise and proper mind, a life unseen, a segment of precious experience denied, leaving her feeling utterly defrauded. Charlotte, a woman whose spirit was forged in the crucible of polite society, and whose tongue was honed on the whetstone of indignation, swiftly launched her protest. The manager, a flustered Italian, offered little solace beyond shrugs and assurances of full up, which only served to further inflame Miss Bartlett's sense of moral outrage. Lucy, younger, less rigidly formed, felt a similar disappointment but lacked her cousin's fire. She merely absorbed the stifling air, the muted sounds, and the profound sense that something vital had been withheld. This was not the Italy she had imagined, the Italy of passion and art. It was merely a corridor of an Italian hotel, a sterile buffer against the vibrant world outside. That evening, the dining room, a battleground of starched linen and hushed English voices, offered no immediate relief. Charlotte, still smarting from her view-less incarceration, found little to tempt her palate, scrutinizing each dish, as if it too might harbor a hidden disappointment. Lucy, observing her cousin's mounting misery, felt a flicker of sympathy, yet also a vague, unsettling restlessness within herself. The room was heavy with the presence of other English souls, all meticulously maintaining their decorum, their separate worlds orbiting without collision. It was into this carefully constructed sphere of propriety that two men, Mr. Emerson and his son George, intruded with the force of a sudden gust of wind. Mr. Emerson Sr., a man of unconventional appearance and even more unconventional directness, observed Charlotte's manifest distress. His voice, startlingly clear and devoid of any social varnish, cut through the genteel hum. "I hear you have no view," he announced, startling not only Charlotte but half the room. "Well, my son and I have rooms with a view of the Arno, and we should be delighted to swap with you." Charlotte gasped, a delicate hand flying to her throat. Such an offer, so blunt, so utterly un-English, Her social antennae, finely tuned to detect even the slightest impropriety, quivered with alarm. The Emersons, she had already deduced, were not their sort. The father, a forthright, almost aggressively honest man, and the son, a brooding, handsome young man who seemed to gaze upon the world with an unnerving intensity, struck Charlotte as dangerously informal. Their clothes, their manner, their very willingness to challenge the unspoken rules of interaction, it was all profoundly unsettling. "Oh, but really, Mr. Emerson, you are too kind. We couldn't possibly," Charlotte stammered, her mind racing through the labyrinthine etiquette of refusal. To accept charity from strangers, and such peculiar strangers, it was unthinkable. It was a breach of everything she held dear about maintaining one's distance, one's dignity. To her, a shared view was not worth the price of social discomfort. A life, even if unseen, was preferable to one lived outside the strict confines of good taste. But Mr. Emerson was not to be deterred by delicate sensibilities. He pressed his case with a simple, unadorned logic that was both disarming and, to Charlotte, profoundly irritating. "But why not? We are perfectly happy without a view. We only took them because they were available. You clearly desire one. It seems only sensible." He spoke of health, of the benefit of the sun, of the simple joy of beauty. Lucy, observing from the quiet periphery, found herself intrigued. There was something in the older man's directness, his lack of artifice, that resonated, however faintly, with a part of her that yearned for something beyond the polite fictions of her world. His words painted a picture of a world where desires were acknowledged, where solutions were practical, and where the sun was not something to be merely observed, but felt asterisk. The debate continued, a polite but firm battle between Charlotte's rigid propriety and Mr. Emerson's unyielding good sense. Eventually, worn down by his insistence and perhaps a hidden flicker of longing for that promised view, Charlotte capitulated. Not gracefully, mind you, but with a series of tortured rationalizations about the inconvenience of moving, the kindness of strangers, and the overriding necessity of Lucy experiencing a proper Florence. She convinced herself, and perhaps hoped to convince the Emersons, that she was doing them a favor by allowing them to perform an act of charity. The following morning, amidst a flurry of packing and the careful supervision of porters, Lucy and Charlotte moved to the rooms with a view. As Lucy stepped onto the small balcony, the city unfurled before her like a vibrant tapestry, the Arno shimmering, the distant hills hazy with promise, the very air alive with a light she had only ever dreamed of. It was more than just a landscape, it was a revelation. It was the world, alive and waiting, a room with a view, a life at last beginning to be seen. And in that moment, a quiet seed of change, barely perceptible, began to sprout within Lucy Honeychurch's soul. Schesk int. Pension Bertolini dining room evening. Scheres, the dining room of the Pension Bertolini, is a monument to English reserve transplanted onto foreign soil. Heavy velvet curtains are drawn against the Florentine twilight, trapping a faint, institutional odor of gravy and beeswax. Long tables, adorned with crisp white linen, are filled with the polite, hushed murmur of British voices. Silverware clinks discreetly, a symphony of genteel restraint. Lucy Honeychurch, a young woman in her early 20s, sits opposite her older cousin, Charlotte Bartlett. Charlotte, angular and precise, is dissecting a piece of rather unappetizing chicken with an air of grim determination, her lips pursed. Lucy, however, picks listlessly at her food, her gaze drifting towards the window, which offers only a view of a drab, enclosed courtyard. Her mind is miles away, yearning for something unseen. Charlotte leaning in, her voice a precise, stage whisper that somehow carries through the room. "Really, Lucy?" One quite despairs. "The Arno, you understand, the very reason for our journey, promised in the prospectus, described in glowing terms, and what do we receive? A most uninspiring patch of brickwork, punctuated by a solitary, rather grimy fountain." I've spoken to the proprietor, of course, with all due firmness, explaining the contractual obligation, but he merely shrugged, quite offensively, about the fullness of the house. As if that absolves them of common honesty. It is simply not acceptable. Lucy sighs, a faint, almost imperceptible sound of deep disappointment. She glances at her plate, then back at the dull window, a wistful ache in her heart. Lucy, it would have been lovely, wouldn't it, to wake up and see the river. The light must be beautiful there. Charlotte, lovely? My dear, it would have been asterisk proper asterisk. A room with a view, as they so artfully put it in the guidebooks. Though I must admit, the phrase now carries a distinctly ironic flavor, a bitter tang of deception. One simply cannot rely on anyone anymore, not even for a basic standard of truth. A booming, rather un-English voice cuts across the polite chatter, startling Charlotte so much she nearly drops her fork. Mr. Emerson from a nearby table, rising slightly, his eyes bright and direct, sweeping across the room but fixing on Lucy and Charlotte. Rooms with views. We have rooms with views. Fine rooms looking straight onto the Arno, quite magnificent. Charlotte stiffens, scandalized by the sudden, uncouth outburst. Lucy shrinks a little in her seat, but a spark of curiosity, quickly suppressed, ignites in her eyes. Mr. Emerson is a large, rather untidy man with a shock of gray hair, radiating an almost aggressive sincerity. Beside him, his son, George Emerson, sits silently, a dark, brooding figure, staring fixedly at his plate, as if contemplating the mysteries of the universe within a single pea. Charlotte, to Lucy aghast, her whisper now a strangled gasp, "Good heavens, who is that dreadful man?" Utterly without decorum, and to address us so directly. Mr. Emerson, ignoring Charlotte's whisper, his voice hearty and clear, "Yes, we have 2 rooms, father and son. Good rooms, but wasted on us. A young lady, she needs the view. Youth and beauty, they need the Arno. My son, he says, father, let them have the view. It's a pity for them to miss it." Charlotte's face flushes a deep, painful red, a vivid splash of color in the subdued room. She splutters, unable to form a coherent response, her sense of propriety utterly assaulted. Lucy, meanwhile, looks up, a strong flicker of interest, almost of hope, in her eyes. The idea, though shockingly presented, holds a sudden, undeniable appeal, like a window flung open onto a suffocating room. Charlotte, finally finding her voice, though it's high-pitched and strained, a mere squeak, "Sir, I assure you, we are perfectly content. Such an offer, though no doubt well-intentioned, is entirely unsuitable. We could not possibly impose." "The thought alone! Mr. Emerson imposing! Nonsense! What is there to impose? We have the rooms, you want the rooms. The Arno is for looking at, not for keeping hidden. It's what one came to Italy for, isn't it? To see! To asterisk feel asterisk! To absorb the very essence of the place." Charlotte looks around, mortified, convinced all eyes are upon them, judging their supposed impropriety. A stout, flamboyant woman with a dramatic feathered hat, Miss Lavish, sitting at the Emersons' table, chimes in with theatrical enthusiasm, her voice a clarion call. "Miss Lavish, absolutely. Mr. Emerson is quite right, Miss Bartlett. One must break the chains of stifling convention. Embrace the spontaneous. This is Italy, after all, not a dreary drawing room in Tunbridge Wells, where every impulse is strangled at birth. Seize the day, I say. Carpe diem." Mr. Beebe, a kindly clergyman with an amused twinkle in his eye, seated further down, offers a gentle, encouraging smile to Lucy. The 2 Miss Allens, quiet and observant spinsters, merely watch the unfolding drama, their expressions unreadable, yet subtly intrigued. Charlotte, to Miss Lavish, with a sharp intake of breath, her voice quivering with indignation, "Miss Lavish, with all due respect, there are certain proprieties, certain boundaries that must be observed, even in Italy. We are strangers, after all. To exchange rooms with perfect strangers, men at that, it simply would not do. Think of the precedent, the scandal, the implications for our reputations. It would be unthinkable." Mr. Emerson impatiently, his voice rising slightly, cutting through her protest. "Scandal? What scandal? My son is a good lad, quite harmless, and I'm an old man who likes to see young people happy, truly happy, not stifled by cobwebs. We change rooms. It is a simple matter. No strings, no fuss. Just the Arno, the glorious Arno." He gestures vaguely towards the window, as if the river itself is an undeniable, insistent force, pulling at them. Lucy finds herself captivated by his sheer directness, a stark, bracing contrast to Charlotte's convoluted, anxious reasoning. She imagines the view, the glorious light, the vibrant colors of the city spreading out beneath her window like a dazzling tapestry. The dull courtyard view suddenly feels like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Charlotte, wringing her hands beneath the table, her voice a desperate drone, but the arrangement, the sheer logistical impropriety. To move all our belongings, to disturb their peace, to cause such an upheaval, it would be an imposition of the highest order. "My dear Mr. Emerson, you are too kind, too generous to a fault. But we absolutely could not, my conscience simply wouldn't allow it. It goes against every fiber of my being." Mr. Emerson cutting her off, with a sudden, almost fierce gentleness, his eyes burning with conviction. "Miss, if you have the view, you will see the light. You will see the river, glittering. You will see life itself unfolding, vibrant and unrestrained. To deny this for niceties for the sake of these dusty social rules, that is a sin against youth, a sin against God, even to close your eyes to beauty when it is offered." Lucy feels a profound jolt, a sudden recognition of the raw truth in his words, bypassing all of Charlotte's careful arguments. The unspoken yearning within her seems to amplify, a quiet roar against Charlotte's increasingly frantic protests. George Emerson, for the first time, looks up from his plate. His eyes meet Lucy's for a fleeting moment, intense, dark, unblinking, holding a silent, challenging question. It's a disconcerting, yet strangely compelling glance that unsettles something deep within her. Mr. Beebe smiling gently at Charlotte, a conspiratorial note in his voice. "Perhaps, Miss Bartlett, it is a gesture born of true Christian charity, delivered in an unconventional wrapper. And what is Italy for, if not a place to cast off some of our more tiresome English inhibitions? A room with a view, for a young lady, does seem rather essential for the full Florentine experience, wouldn't you say? One must seize every opportunity for enlightenment." Charlotte wavers, visibly shaken, caught between her rigid code of conduct and the combined pressure, both spoken and unspoken, from all sides. Lucy's silent, pleading eyes, filled with an uncharacteristic intensity, are perhaps the most potent force. The promise of the Arno, of Florence bursting into her room, becomes an almost physical ache, a demand that cannot be ignored. Charlotte, with a sigh of deep theatrical resignation, her shoulders slumping, "Oh, very well. If you insist, Mr. Emerson, truly if you insist, but I must protest the sheer awkwardness of it all. It is highly irregular, highly, and I shall certainly compensate you for any trouble this considerable inconvenience causes. A gratuity, perhaps, for your magnanimity." Mr. Emerson beaming, the previous intensity replaced by a robust cheerfulness. "Nonsense about compensation. We shall move directly after supper. George, let us pack our things. The ladies shall have their view, and may it bring them much joy and inspiration." George rises silently, almost a shadow of his father's expansive presence, and they make their exit from the dining room, a whirlwind of unexpected change. Miss Lavish claps her hands dramatically, a loud, triumphant sound. Miss Lavish, "Bravo, Mr. Emerson, bravo." A blow struck for spontaneity and the triumph of the human spirit over dusty convention. Magnifique. Charlotte is left looking utterly undone, as if a great, tiresome battle has been waged and irrevocably lost, leaving her utterly drained. Lucy, however, feels a strange, exhilarating mix of wonder and trepidation. The violent violet fields of Italy, a metaphor for the intense, beautiful, and sometimes unsettling experiences awaiting her, the colors too bright, the emotions too strong, seem to have just moved into her very room. The world, her neatly ordered English world, has just shifted violently on its axis, ever so slightly, but irrevocably, opening up to a riot of possibility. Charlotte muttering more to herself than Lucy, picking at a loose thread on the tablecloth. "I do hope the sheets are clean, and that they don't snore. Oh, the complications! The utterly unnecessary complications of it all!" Lucy, a small, secret smile playing on her lips, imagines the view. The shimmering river, the golden light of the city, the vibrant tapestry of Florence, now hers to behold. She can almost feel the warm breeze, hear the distant, seductive sounds of Italy, inviting her to step out of the shadows and into the glorious, unpredictable, and yes, even violent light. A new chapter, she knows, has just begun. And so, the little drama of the Emersons' room unfolded, leaving Lucy Honeychurch feeling a peculiar mixture of unease and a strange, nascent thrill. She and Charlotte had returned to the pension, Charlotte clucking over the impropriety, Lucy trying to piece together the fragments of an afternoon that had challenged everything she understood about propriety. But Italy, she was soon to discover, could only hold its transformative sway for so long before England, in all its sturdy, sensible, and utterly inescapable glory, reasserted itself. The pension Bertolini was, after all, a haven for the English abroad, a place where one could pretend to be adventurous without ever truly leaving the comforts and the strictures of home. The dining room, once a canvas of foreign possibility, now seemed to solidify into a familiar portrait. Here arrived Miss Lavish, a novelist of some renown, though more for her pronouncements than her prose, her face an animated map of indignation and intellectual fervor. She spoke of Italy with a knowing air, a cultivated disdain for the tourist traps, while meticulously avoiding any genuine immersion herself. "Oh, these English," she would exclaim, sweeping a dismissive hand across the room, as if she herself were not the very epitome of the type she so scorned. Her criticisms were sharp, her observations often astute, but they were always delivered from within the gilded cage she professed to despise. She was, in essence, a revolutionary who preferred the comfort of the drawing-room rebellion. Then came Mr. Eager, the English chaplain, a man whose every utterance seemed to emanate from a position of unassailable moral rectitude. His gaze, even when wandering over the Florentine cityscape from the pension windows, never quite left the boundaries of what was proper, what was acceptable, what was, above all, English. He was the shepherd of the flock, ensuring that none of his charges strayed too far into the wild, untamed pastures of foreignness. He saw to it that the conversations remained decorous, the outings pre-planned and chaperoned, the very air of Florence filtered through a muslin of English sensibility. And of course, the Miss Allens, two sweet, rather timid elderly ladies, who embodied the quiet, almost passive Englishness that sought only comfort and familiarity. Their joy was in the certainty of routine, the predictable rhythm of their daily excursions, and the reassuring presence of their own kind. Lucy, seated amidst this burgeoning congregation of Englishness, found herself a silent observer. The initial exhilaration of Florence, the sudden, almost brutal beauty of the Arno, the unsettling directness of the Emersons all seemed to recede, replaced by the encroaching shadows of English expectation. Charlotte, ever the vigilant guardian, sat beside her, her comments a running commentary on the various improprieties of their fellow guests, subtly reinforcing the very societal walls Lucy felt pressing in. Miss Lavish, in one of her more impassioned declarations, leaned across the table. "Florence, it's all a facade, my dear, a glorious painted lie. Underneath, it's all sauce just like England. We're all trapped, aren't we? Trapped in our little boxes, our little conventions." She spoke of freedom, of breaking free, but her own life, Lucy noticed, was meticulously ordered, her bohemianism a carefully constructed performance. She championed individuality yet rarely deviated from the established path of her own intellectual set. Mr. Eager, meanwhile, was arranging an expedition. "We must visit the Church of Santa Croce, of course," he declared, his voice resonating with a quiet authority. "Such important tombs, such history. And then, perhaps, a sensible tea." His itinerary was a shield against the unexpected, a buffer against any true encounter with Italy's untamed spirit. He was not here to embrace Florence, but to supervise it. Lucy listened, her mind a quiet battleground. The Emersons, with their directness, their strange, almost unsettling honesty, had pierced a hole in her carefully constructed world. They had offered her a glimpse, however brief, of something raw and real. But now the English collective was rushing in, sealing that hole, covering it with polite chatter, sensible plans, and the comforting weight of tradition. She looked around the dining room. The room with a view problem, the one that Mr. Emerson had so pragmatically, so un-Englishly solved, now seemed to extend beyond the walls of the pension. It wasn't just about a physical window, it was about a perspective, a way of seeing the world. And here, in this room, surrounded by her compatriots, Lucy felt as though the blinds were being drawn one by one. The air grew thick with unspoken rules, with judgments passed in raised eyebrows and knowing glances. Italy, the wild, beautiful, untidy Italy, was being tidied up, made presentable, fitted into the confines of an English imagination. The promise of adventure, the faint stirrings of a different life, were being smothered under a suffocating blanket of Englishness. She was in Florence, yes, but Florence itself seemed to be shrinking, becoming merely a backdrop for the familiar dramas of her own people. The gilded cage, she realized, was not just Miss Lavish's intellectual construct, it was a palpable presence, tightening its grip, even here, in the heart of Italy, and Lucy, for the first time, felt its bars against her spirit, wondering if she had the strength, or even the desire, to rattle them. Ah, Florence! The very name, a sigh on the lips, a promise of beauty in the unexpected. Our story, dear reader, finds Miss Lucy Honeychurch and her ever-vigilant chaperone, Miss Charlotte Bartlett, standing upon the precipice of their Italian adventure, though one might say, rather, upon a particularly uninspiring stretch of linoleum in the Bertolini. They had arrived, as all travelers do, with expectations bundled tighter than their trunks. A room with a view, a glorious Arno vista, was among them. But alas, the fates, with a mischievous wink, had decreed otherwise. 2 rooms without a view, the hotelier had declared, with a shrug that spoke volumes of Italian pragmatism versus English sensibility. Lucy, sweet Lucy, ever striving for the proper, the agreeable, sought to make the best of it. She peered out the window, A sliver of alleyway, a neighboring wall, a patch of gray sky, not a scrap of the promised romance. Her heart, though, was not yet broken. A good English girl, she knew how to make do. But Charlotte! Her sensibilities, like her corsets, were laced tight with righteous indignation. Without a view, she had gasped, as if the very foundations of British tourism had crumbled. After all the trouble we've taken, the correspondence, the express request, her voice, a finely tuned instrument of complaint, began to resonate through the corridor, much to Lucy's mortification. For Lucy, such direct confrontation was anathema, a vulgar display best confined to the domestic squabbles of tradesmen. And then, as if summoned by Charlotte's lamentations, the very embodiment of the unconventional appeared. Mr. Emerson, with his booming voice and startling lack of social veneer, stood before them, his son George a silent, observant shadow beside him. They had overheard, of course. One always did, in Italian hotels, where walls seemed to have ears and discretion was merely an English eccentricity. "It seems you have been put in rooms without a view," Mr. Emerson stated, not as a question, but as a plain, unvarnished fact. "We, on the other hand, have excellent views. My son and I would be glad to swap." Lucy froze. Her social antennae, exquisitely attuned to the subtle vibrations of impropriety, shrieked, "Swap? With men, strangers, it was simply not done." Such a proposal, stripped of all polite circumlocution, felt raw, indecent, like a sudden gust of wind lifting her skirt. Propriety, that sturdy English governess of the soul, clamored within her. She fumbled for words, for a polite refusal, a way to reinstate the comfortable fictions that governed her world. But Charlotte, caught between her own stringent rules of decorum and the burning desire for a vista, hesitated only for a moment. The lure of the Arno, the promise of a sun-drenched cityscape, proved stronger than the dictates of Mrs. Grundy. "Oh, Mr. Emerson, how very kind, how perfectly unconventional. But are you quite sure?" The unconventional was a thin veil for her own keen interest, for the idea of gaining something so desirable through such an irregular channel held a strange thrill. "Quite sure," Mr. Emerson boomed, unburdened by social niceties. "A view is for everyone. Take it." And so, with astonishing speed, a torrent of porters descended, furniture was shifted, and trunks were trundled. Lucy found herself propelled into a new room, a room previously occupied by George Emerson, a room that now offered the most breathtaking panorama imaginable. The Arno, winding silver beneath the golden sun, bridges arching gracefully, the Duomo rising like a sacred mountain, it was all there, a living, breathing painting. But her heart remained aflutter, not entirely from the beauty of the scene. The room, she quickly realized, was next door to George's. A thin wall, she imagined, separated her from this quiet, intense young man who seemed to gaze upon the world with an unnerving directness. The very air felt charged, altered. The view, so glorious, so liberating, had arrived hand in hand with an almost palpable sense of invasion. Truth, as Mr. Emerson might have called it, had indeed moved in next door. It wasn't just a physical proximity, but the unsettling proximity of a different way of being, a way that stripped away the polite evasions and the carefully constructed barriers of her upbringing. The Emersons, with their plain-spoken honesty and their disregard for the right way of doing things, had pierced the genteel fog that usually enveloped Lucy's world. She stood by the window, the view drawing her in, beckoning her to embrace the vibrant, complicated life below, but the circumstances of its acquisition, the unsettling feeling of being too close to the unvarnished realities represented by the Emersons, lingered like an unfamiliar scent. This view, Lucy sensed, was not merely a landscape, it was a challenge, a silent question posed to her very soul, delivered with the blunt, shocking honesty of strangers. And for the first time truly, Lucy felt a strange stirring within her, an inkling that her world, carefully curated and contained, might be about to expand, whether she was ready for it or not. The adventure, it seemed, had only just begun. The world, which had seemed to solidify around Lucy Honeychurch just moments before, now spun with alarming velocity. The scent of crushed violets was potent, a heady perfume that clung to her, a constant silent accusation. She stood, transfixed by the landscape, yet seeing nothing but the insistent after image of George Emerson's face, his lips pressing against hers, the unexpected, shocking warmth that had flooded through her. It was a kiss, yes, but not like the tentative, polite pecks she imagined from Cecil. This was a force, a statement, an intrusion into the carefully manicured garden of her sensibilities. Her mind, usually a well-ordered drawing room of polite thoughts and musical notations, was a shambles. How dare he, was the first indignant thought, quickly followed by a strange, unsettling query. Why did it feel like that? A tremor ran through her, not of cold, but of a disquieting warmth that lingered long after he had retreated, like sunlight on stone. She ought to be furious, offended beyond measure. She should be. Yet, a peculiar confusion blurred the edges of her indignation, a sense that something vital, something she hadn't known she lacked, had just been briefly offered and then snatched away. Her rational self struggled to reassert control, to categorize the event as an impropriety, a moment of regrettable madness, easily forgotten. But how could one forget the sensation of being utterly, unexpectedly known, even if only for a fleeting second? Then, the calm, measured voice of Charlotte Bartlett, crisp as new linen, cut through the buzzing confusion in Lucy's head. "Lucy, child, what on earth has happened?" Charlotte stood a little way off, her face a peculiar blend of horror and grim satisfaction. Her eyes, usually so adept at missing inconvenient details, had evidently taken in quite enough. The fallen violets, the disheveled hair, Lucy's flushed cheeks, the very air around them vibrating with something raw and untoward. Charlotte's lips thinned. "We must return to the pension at once." There was an ominous finality in her tone, a certainty that brooked no argument. The walk back was a blur of hurried footsteps and suffocating silence. Lucy dared not speak, dared not even meet Charlotte's gaze, which she felt as a burning brand on her conscience. It was wrong, she chanted internally, wrong, wrong, wrong. She must obliterate it, bury it beneath layers of conventionality and duty. But the memory was tenacious, a vibrant stain on the pristine fabric of her composure. Upon reaching their room, Charlotte wasted no time. Her movements were swift, efficient, as if preparing for an immediate evacuation from a plague-ridden city. "This simply will not do, Lucy. Not at all." She began to pull out trunks, flinging open wardrobes. "Florence has proven unsuitable, quite unsuitable. We shall go to Rome." Lucy, still reeling, could only stammer Rome. "But, Charlotte, we only just arrived." Precisely, Charlotte snapped, her voice tight with suppressed panic. "And look what has become of it. Incidents, Lucy, dreadful, embarrassing incidents. It is clear that this atmosphere, these people, are not conducive to a young lady's proper development. Rome will be different, more structured, more proper." Her tone implied that Florence was a hotbed of moral corruption, and Rome a sanctuary of rigid etiquette. Lucy felt a peculiar lassitude. She wanted to argue, to demand answers, to understand Charlotte's frantic haste, but the sheer force of Charlotte's will, coupled with her own internal disarray, rendered her mute. Her world, so carefully constructed from the foundations of English gentility and Italian art, felt as if a fault line had just appeared beneath it, splitting it irrevocably. Later that evening, letters arrived from home, little anchors from a life that suddenly seemed impossibly distant. Mrs. Honeychurch's familiar scrawl spoke of garden parties and local gossip, a comforting, unthreatening universe. And then, there was Cecil Vyse's letter. His elegant, precise hand detailed his intellectual pursuits, his disdain for the common tourist, his upcoming arrival in Italy, hinting at future plans that involved ***. Reading his words, Lucy tried to summon a sense of proprietorship, of belonging. Cecil was safe, predictable, an embodiment of the proper life. His world was one of order and cultured conversation, a world where kisses were anticipated, perhaps even discussed beforehand, rather than delivered with shocking, uninvited force amidst sun-drenched violets. But even Cecil's familiar presence, relayed through the page, couldn't entirely restore the shattered illusion of her composure. The memory of George's kiss persisted, a discordant note in the symphony of her life, refusing to be played out of tune or silenced. It was as if a beautiful stained glass window, depicting her ideal future, had been struck by a stone, not breaking it entirely, but leaving a jagged fissure, a web of tiny cracks that compromised its perfect, colorful surface. Through those cracks, a sliver of raw, untamed reality now peered, and Lucy knew, with a sinking heart, that she could never quite unsee what it revealed. The glass, once whole, was now irrevocably shattered. Tomorrow they would leave for Rome, carrying the fragments with them. The very air of Florence seemed to possess a mischievous spirit that day, stirring up not just the dust in the cobbled streets, but also the tidy expectations of English gentlewomen. Our Lucy, dear girl, found herself quite swept along by it all, like a leaf caught in an unexpected current. For you see, the fates, or perhaps merely the hotel management, had decreed a change of address. The dreary pension Bertolini awaited, a place promising more comfort, if not precisely more view. She arrived, clutching her guidebook like a shield, her face a charming study in polite apprehension. Miss Lavish, meanwhile, was already sniffing out potential plot points, her literary antennae twitching with delight at the thought of a new setting. They were shown to their rooms, perfectly adequate, certainly. But alas, the Arno, that ribbon of silver and gold that Lucy longed for, remained stubbornly out of sight, veiled by a prosaic wall. A sigh, almost imperceptible, escaped Lucy's lips. The promise of Italy, so tantalizingly close, seemed to recede again behind a polite facade. But Florence, as I mentioned, had plans. And those plans often involved the most unconventional of instruments. Scarcely had their trunks been set down when a knock, firm and unhesitating, sounded at the door. It was Mr. Emerson, his usually rumpled frame somehow radiating an almost evangelical zeal, and young George, silent as ever, but with an intensity in his gaze that could not be ignored. "Ladies," Mr. Emerson boomed, his voice carrying the scent of honest intent and a slight disregard for conventional pleasantries, "we have made a mistake, a terrible mistake. You must have the view. We have rooms, excellent rooms, looking straight onto the Arno. It is not right." Lucy felt a blush creep up her neck. Oh, the awkwardness. The sheer, unadulterated English awkwardness of it all. To accept such a sacrifice from relative strangers, and men at that. Her finely tuned instincts for propriety screamed protest. "Oh, Mr. Emerson, really, you are too kind," she stammered, casting a desperate glance at Miss Lavish, who, far from offering rescue, was practically vibrating with interest. Miss Lavish, indeed, stepped forward, her eyes alight. "My dear Lucy, what an opportunity for realism. What a moment of genuine human interaction. Don't be absurd, child. These good gentlemen are offering you the very heart of Florence." She turned to Mr. Emerson, a conspiratorial glint in her eye. "You understand, sir, that in our constricted English lives, such spontaneous generosity is almost unheard of." Mr. Emerson merely nodded, unperturbed by Miss Lavish's theatricality. "It is simple, madam. When things are not right, they must be made right. And the view is everything." He gestured with a sweeping hand as if conjuring the river and its reflections from thin air. "Come, young lady, my son and I insist." Lucy found herself propelled, almost physically, down the corridor. Her mind raced, a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Gratitude, certainly, but tinged with a bewildering sense of obligation, and a faint, almost imperceptible annoyance at the Emersons' blunt disregard for the delicate dance of social graces. Why couldn't they have just offered in a more conventional way? Perhaps a polite suggestion to the manager, a murmured hope that a change might be arranged. No, they had to confront her, to present her with a fait accompli, leaving her no graceful escape. Yet a part of her, a smaller, quieter part that had only just begun to awaken, felt a strange thrill. A crack was forming in the neat, predictable shell of her world. And then, it happened. They opened the door. The afternoon sun, now lower and richer, poured in through the wide-open casements, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. And there it was. Not just a glimpse, not a sliver, but the Arno itself, sprawling majestically beneath her, a vibrant tapestry of light and shadow, spanned by the graceful arches of the Ponte Vecchio. The ancient buildings, the distant hills, the very essence of Florence lay spread out before her like a precious gift. Lucy walked to the window, her breath catching in her throat. The sheer, overwhelming beauty of it silenced her inner turmoil. The view was vast, a living, breathing landscape that seemed to expand not just before her eyes, but within her very soul. She looked down at the river, shimmering and alive, carrying with it the whispers of centuries, the stories of 1,000 lives. It was more than a pretty picture, it was a profound experience, an almost spiritual revelation. Mr. Emerson, sensing her awe, moved beside her, his voice softer now, almost philosophical. "You see?" he murmured, his gaze fixed on the same panorama. "I told you it was right. When people want a view, they should have it. When they don't have it, and someone else does, and it can be changed, why, it should be changed. It's simply seeing things as they are, Miss Honeychurch, not as they're supposed to be. Life, you see, should flow like that river, unhindered. People get into habits, into rooms without views, and they forget what's possible." His words, simple yet profound, resonated deep within Lucy. They were unsettling, certainly, challenging her ingrained notions of order and propriety, yet undeniably true in some visceral sense. She had wanted this view, truly wanted it, and now here it was, given not by careful planning or social maneuvering, but by a direct, unvarnished act of human kindness, however awkward it might have felt. She remained by the window for a long time after the Emersons and Miss Lavish had departed, the sounds of their chatter fading down the corridor. The Arno flowed on, indifferent to the small dramas of English tourists, yet offering its boundless beauty to anyone who would simply look. And Lucy, for the first time, was truly looking. Not just at the river, but at the possibilities it suggested, the breadth of a world far grander and more unconventional than she had ever imagined. That evening, dinner at the Bertolini felt different. The Emersons, now seated at their less glorious table, occasionally glanced over, and Lucy, though still prone to blushing, found herself returning their smiles with a warmth that surprised her. The barrier, erected by years of careful breeding, had not entirely crumbled, but a small, significant crack had appeared. Florence, at last, had truly opened its arms to her, not just with a physical view, but with a new perspective on life itself. And in the quiet hum of the dining room, Lucy Honeychurch, unknowingly, had begun her journey. To gaze upon the world with one's own eyes, what a curious, often challenging, and ultimately liberating endeavor that proves to be. We are born, most of us, into rooms with views already prescribed, windows framed by the expectations of others, the whispers of society, the comfortable habits of tradition. And for a time, we accept these views as our own, perhaps even mistake them for the very landscape of truth itself. But then, for some, a gentle disquiet begins, a subtle stirring in the heart, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, there is another vista, one waiting beyond the familiar pains. This journey, this quiet revolution of the soul, is not merely about shifting one's physical position, though that can certainly help. It is about a deeper recalibration, an opening of the inner eye. Here, then, is a modest guide, a 7-day contemplation to help you draw back the curtains, dust away the smudges of inherited perception, and begin to discover the unique, authentic panorama that is truly yours. Ask Day 1. The unadorned panes begin not with grand pronouncements, but with simple observation. Choose a window in your dwelling, any window at all. For 5 minutes, perhaps 10, merely look. Not at what you expect to see, not at what you have named or categorized tree, house, sky, but at the raw data of existence. Notice the nuances of light, the play of shadow, the specific shade of green on a leaf, the way the breeze rustles a curtain. Can you discern the texture of the air, the silence between the sounds? Strip away the labels, the judgments, the preconceived notions. What is actually purely, wonderfully, unburdened by your interpretation or memory? Allow your eyes to be truly innocent, as if seeing for the very first time. This is the foundation of fresh gaze. Day 2. The echoes in the room. Having spent yesterday in quiet observation, today we turn inward. As you reflect on the view you observed, listen for the echoes. What thoughts arose? What feelings? Were there judgments about what you saw? Perhaps a sense of it should be more beautiful, or how very ordinary. Now, trace these thoughts to their origin if you can. Who taught you what was beautiful or ordinary? What books, what conversations, what societal norms have shaped your aesthetic? Did you perhaps feel a slight resistance to simply seeing an urge to analyze or compare? Recognize these as the faint voices in your own room, the subtle impositions on your personal view. There is no need for judgment, only for awareness of their presence. Ask Day 3. The heart's low tremors. The intellect, with its categories and comparisons, is a powerful tool, but it often operates at a distance. Today, we invite the heart to speak. Find a moment of quiet solitude. Close your eyes. Without visual input, what sensations stir within you when you recall a truly resonant memory, a moment of pure joy, profound sorrow, or undeniable truth? It might be the sound of laughter, the scent of rain, the warmth of a hand. Focus not on the details of the memory, but on the feeling it evokes, the deep, often inarticulate tremor in your chest. This is your internal compass, the muddle that Lucy Honeychurch often felt, that deep-seated intuition that yearns to be heard, often drowning beneath the din of societal expectation. It is the purest, most unfiltered source of your own unique view. Ask Day 4. Stepping beyond the threshold. A view, however grand, can become stagnant if seen always from the same window. Today, physically alter your perspective. Do something, however small, that takes you out of your accustomed routine. Take a different route to your destination. Visit a place you've never been, a park, a gallery, a quiet street you've overlooked. Observe the people, the architecture, the flora with the same innocent gaze you cultivated on Day 1. Allow yourself to be slightly uncomfortable, perhaps even a little lost. This deliberate venturing into the unfamiliar helps to dislodge the deeply grooved pathways of habit and expectation, revealing new facets of the world, and by extension, new facets of your own potential for perception. It expands the very frame of your window. Day 5. the unveiling of discomfort asterisk truth, when it finally reveals itself, is not always beautiful or convenient. Often, it is raw, perhaps even startling. Today, lean into a moment of recent discomfort or perceived awkwardness. Did a conversation take an unexpected turn? Did a plan unravel? Did you feel a pang of jealousy, a flush of anger, or a sudden, inconvenient surge of passion? Instead of shying away or attempting to rationalize it, sit with the feeling. What did that moment, that raw emotion, truly illuminate about your deeper values, your hidden desires, or the unspoken truths of a situation? Sometimes, the most profound revelations come from the very experiences we initially try to suppress or explain away. This day asks for courage, the courage to embrace the unvarnished reality, even if it muddies the proper view. Shrekis Day 6. The reflected gaze. Our views are profoundly shaped by the company we keep, the reflections we see in the eyes of others. Today, consider the key figures in your life. With whom do you feel truly seen, truly heard, truly understood in your unique perspective? And with whom do you feel the need to adjust your view, to temper your thoughts, or to see the world as they expect you to see it? This is not a judgment of others, but an honest assessment of their influence on your inner landscape. Do they encourage you to gaze more widely, or do they inadvertently narrow your focus? Who helps you clean the pane of your own window, and who perhaps smears it with their own anxieties or expectations? Recognize these influences, for they are powerful forces in determining the clarity of your own vista. Day 7. The drawing of your own horizons. You have observed, questioned, felt, ventured, embraced discomfort, and reflected on your connections. Now return to your window or to a place that feels significant to you. Look out once more. What do you see now? Has the light shifted? Has the familiar taken on a new dimension? More importantly, how has your inner landscape changed? Can you feel a stronger sense of your own presence, your own unique way of seeing? You may not have all the answers, nor a perfectly polished philosophy, but can you now articulate, even to yourself, the essence of your own view? It is not about declaring a final truth, but about claiming the right to your personal perspective, to stand by the window of your soul and acknowledge the distinct beauty, the peculiar challenge, the authentic truth of what you see. This is the beginning of living, truly in your own room with your own view. This journey is, of course, never truly complete. The light changes, the seasons turn, and the world offers endless new angles. But having embarked upon this path, you have found the courage to claim your vision, to trust the tremor in your heart, and to gaze out upon the world, not as others dictate, but as your authentic self truly perceives it. And that, dear friend, is the most magnificent view of all. The story unfolds, not just in Italy's sun-drenched frescoes, but within the quiet, stifling drawing rooms of England, where convention pressed down like a Victorian bonnet. Lucy Honeychurch, returned from the vivid chaos of Florence, found herself betrothed to Cecil Vyse, a man of intellect and, crucially, impeccable social standing. He was, to all appearances, the perfect choice. Yet, a disquietude stirred, a faint melody that refused to be silenced by the polite hum of drawing room conversation. Honeychurch drawing room evening. Cecil Vyse, elegant and angular, reads aloud from a novel A Love That Passed by a certain Miss Lavish, its pages filled with the very realism he so admired. Lucy Honeychurch sits opposite, her embroidery lying idle in her lap. Her gaze drifts to the garden, a pale replica of the Italian warmth in her memory. Cecil reading, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Oh, the exquisite pain of knowing one's soul mate, only to be bound by the chains of circumstance. A love that transcended vulgarity, that soared above the petty squabbles of material gain. He lowers the book, fixing his eyes on Lucy, a proprietary glint in them. Rather good, don't you think, my dear? So much more authentic than the usual drivel. It speaks of the true heart, unvarnished by sentimentality. This is the literature that will shape you, Lucy, that will awaken you to the real depths of human experience. You've been shielded too long by pretty fancies. Lucy fidgeting, a faint flush on her cheeks. It's certainly very strong, Cecil. But must everything be quite so stark? I sometimes feel as though you wish to pull everything apart, to expose things I'd rather keep to myself. Cecil, a gentle but firm, patronizing smile. Nonsense, my dearest. It is precisely because I adore you that I wish to refine you. To chisel away the superfluous, leaving only the pure, classical form. "You are a masterpiece in the making, Lucy, and I, your humble sculptor. Imagine the symphonies you will truly appreciate, the authors you will truly understand, once liberated from the tyranny of shallow convention." The first truth began to dawn, not with thunder, but with the quiet, suffocating pressure of a man who loved an idea, not the woman. Cecil sought to elevate Lucy, yes, but in doing so, sought to erase her very essence, her spontaneity, her joy, her messy, beautiful humanity. He saw her as an object, a canvas for his own intellectual brushstrokes, not a soul to be cherished for its untamed colors. Lucy felt it, a chill wind where warmth should have been. Ask later, Lucy alone in her room. Lucy sits by her window, her gaze fixed on the quiet English landscape. A memory flashes George Emerson's face, earnest and searching, beneath the Florentine sun, the forbidden kiss in the fields. She shakes her head, as if to dislodge an intrusive thought. Lucy whispering to herself, almost a plea, "No, I chose Cecil, I chose order, I chose what was right, what was sensible that was a folly, a moment of madness, it means nothing, it must mean nothing." This was the struggle for the second truth. Lucy had built walls around her heart, cemented with the teachings of her class and the expectations of her family. She had been taught that passion was dangerous, that decorum was paramount. But Italy had cracked those walls, and George, that quiet, earnest boy, had pushed a little further. Now, in the quiet of her room, the truth of her own buried desires began to hammer against the edifice of her carefully constructed self. Her heart yearned for the wild, authentic note, not the refined, academic harmony Cecil offered. She was denying herself, and the weight of that denial pressed down, heavier than any societal expectation. Ask the Emersons' new lodgings in Summer Street Day. Ask Mr. Emerson Sr., weathered and wise, sits in his simple, sparsely furnished room. Lucy stands before him, her face a mask of polite exasperation, barely concealing a deeper turmoil. Her engagement ring glints on her finger. George is absent, having been sent out by his father. Lucy, voice tight with strained politeness. "Mr. Emerson, I assure you, you are quite mistaken. My engagement to Cecil is a matter of settled fact, and George is nothing but a friend, a well-meaning acquaintance." Mr. Emerson, his voice gentle but piercing, full of an unshakable conviction. "My dear child, why do you fight yourself so? Why do you pretend? You love the boy, Lucy. You love him truly. I saw it in Italy. I see it now, in your restless eyes, in the way you speak his name, even in denial. You call him a well-meaning acquaintance, but your body betrays you." Lucy, her composure crumbling, tears welling. That is quite preposterous. "I am engaged to Cecil. George he is unsuitable. He is wild. He is a lower class. He has no prospects. My mother would never." Mr. Emerson leaning forward, his eyes holding hers, unwavering. "Prospects? Class? Lucy, those are the chains society forges to bind your heart. What does any of that matter if the heart is not free? George loves you. Not an idea of you, not a Lucy to be refined or sculpted, but you the whole, wild, passionate you. He wants you to be yourself. He wants you to live Don't you see? That is the greatest gift a man can offer a woman. He has no pretensions, no hidden agenda, only truth." And there, in the quiet, unadorned room, the third truth, the most liberating of all, finally burst through Mr. Emerson, the simple, honest prophet, peeled away the layers of deceit Lucy had wrapped around herself. He revealed George not as a threat to her carefully constructed world, but as a gateway to her truest self. He showed her that true love wasn't about social contracts or intellectual pursuits, but about raw, honest connection, about seeing and accepting another's soul without condition. It was a view not from a picturesque window, but from the depths of her own liberated heart. In that moment, the room with a view was no longer a physical place, nor even a metaphorical social construct. It became the expansive, terrifying, yet utterly beautiful vista of Lucy's own authentic future, laid bare before her. The journey from denying three truths to embracing them had finally begun. The English summer afternoon, heavy with the scent of honeysuckle and the drone of industrious bees, lay stretched across Windy Corner like a silken shroud. Inside, the drawing room was a sanctuary of cultivated peace, where chintz bloomed on furniture and polished mahogany gleamed with quiet authority. Lucy Honeychurch, however, found herself increasingly ill at ease within its comforting confines. She sat by the window, ostensibly absorbed in a volume of Ruskin, but her gaze, an errant butterfly, kept flitting past the intellectual rigor of the prose to the untamed luxuriance of the garden outside. The engagement ring on her finger, a symbol of permanence and societal approval, felt suddenly alien, a cool, foreign weight against her skin. Narrator: a curious duality had begun to manifest in Lucy since her return from Italy, a meticulous outward conformity that masked an interior landscape growing wilder, more chaotic by the day. Her betrothal to Cecil Vyse was, by all accounts, perfect. He was a man of impeccable taste, of sharp intellect, and a certain aesthetic refinement that promised a life free from the vulgarities of the world. He was, in short, everything a young lady of good family was expected to desire, and yet the very perfection of it left Lucy with a disquieting sense of hollowness, a nagging suspicion that she was playing a part for which she had not been cast. Cecil, currently ensconced in his favorite armchair, a slim volume of philosophical essays balanced precariously on his knee, looked every inch the modern man of letters. He cleared his throat, a delicate, almost fastidious sound, and lowered his book, his eyes, dark and intelligent, seeking Lucy's. Cecil, with an air of gentle instruction, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "Lucy, my dear, one must truly grapple with the nuances of a text such as this. Listen, it articulates so precisely the very essence of human experience, stripping away the superfluous to reveal the skeletal truth. To truly live is not merely to exist, but to perceive, to discern, to catalogue the beautiful within the chaos, to elevate the temporal into the eternal through the rigorous application of intellect and aesthetic principle." Narrator: he paused, his gaze fixed upon her, expectant. It was not a question, not precisely, but an invitation, a gentle summons to intellectual communion, a quiet demand for shared understanding. He waited for her assent into the rarefied air of his thought, for her nod of intellectual assent, her murmured appreciation for such profundity. Lucy, however, found herself adrift. The words, so carefully chosen, so intellectually precise, seemed to bounce off her mind, unable to penetrate the veil of her own, more visceral, experiences. The beautiful within the chaos, what did that even mean, compared to the vivid, untamed chaos of a Florentine piazza, the raw, unpolished beauty of George Emerson's face after that unsanctioned, shocking kiss in the field of violets? That was a beauty that required no cataloging, no intellectual dissection. It simply was asterisk. It existed in the heart, not the head. Lucy, her voice a little thin, a little strained, as she tried to recall the appropriate response. "Yes, Cecil. It sounds immensely rational, very cerebral." Cecil, a flicker of something disappointment, mild irritation, in his eyes, quickly masked. His tone remained perfectly level, yet there was a new, subtle edge of persuasion to it. "Rational, cerebral indeed, my dearest. But surely it also inspires within you a deeper resonance. Does it not echo some nascent truth within your own sensibilities? I confess, I had hoped you would find the argument rather more encompassing than mere rationality. A woman of your potential ought to grasp the poetic alongside the dialectic. Don't you agree?" Narrator: his question, though couched in a tender inquiry, felt like a gauntlet thrown. It was a call for her view, her intellectual standpoint, her agreement with his carefully constructed reality. And Lucy, trapped between the expectation and her burgeoning, untutored self, felt a suffocating pressure. What was her view? The truth, the messy, beautiful, inconvenient truth, felt like a wild beast stirring within, entirely unsuitable for polite conversation, utterly at odds with Cecil's elegant world. How could she confess that her truth now involved the raw, immediate sensations of sun on skin, the spontaneous outburst of emotion, the very earth underfoot, rather than the refined contemplation of abstract beauty? She sought desperately for the right words, the acceptable phrase, but her mind felt like a blank slate, scrubbed clean of all but a faint, unsettling echo of rebellion. The silence that followed was not quite awkward, but it stretched, taut and thin, between them. Cecil, though genuinely fond of Lucy, held a certain proprietorial air regarding her intellectual development, viewing it as a project he was uniquely suited to guide. And Lucy, for her part, had tried, truly tried, to mold herself into the intellectual companion he desired, to prune the wilder branches of her character, to cultivate the ordered garden of his expectations. But the roots, the very roots of her being, seemed to resist the taming. Just then, a soft rapping sounded at the drawing-room door, and Mr. Beebe, the clergyman, entered with his characteristic blend of geniality and quiet perception. He carried a small, unpretentious bunch of wildflowers, gathered, no doubt, from a neglected hedgerow, rather than a manicured border. "Mr. Beebe, forgive my interruption, my dear children, but the gardener's boy had no further use for these wild beauties, and I thought them rather too spirited for the compost heap. Cecil, still pursuing the sublime. And Lucy, contemplating the broader sweep of the human condition. I trust. Narrator Mr. Beebe's gaze, though seemingly benign, held a peculiar, almost mischievous depth. He looked at Lucy, then at the artless cluster of wildflowers in his hand, buttercups, wild roses, a sprig of forget-me-nots, then back at Lucy, a subtle, unspoken connection passing between them. Mr. Beebe to Lucy, his voice soft, yet resonating with an undercurrent of knowing insight. One often finds, Miss Honeychurch, that the grandest, most exquisite views are not always found in the carefully framed panoramas, nor in the lofty abstractions, but sometimes in the overlooked corner, the unexpected turning of a path, or even in the simple act of stepping out of doors altogether, allowing one's eyes to truly adjust to the light. Tell me, in your quiet reflections these days, what, precisely, is your view of the world? Is it as neatly aligned with Mr. Vyse's profound intellectual landscapes, or does it hold a touch more of the natural, the wild perhaps? A breath of something less catalogued. Narrator, he wasn't merely asking about the Ruskin, nor the literal landscape visible from the window. He was asking for her, the nascent, struggling her that lay beneath the polite veneer. It was the call to action she had been subconsciously, desperately, evading since her return from that sun-drenched, disruptive Italian adventure. What was her view? Not Cecil's with his refined intellect, nor Charlotte's with her rigid propriety, nor even Mr. Emerson's forceful, beautiful assertions of truth, but her own. Lucy, she looked from Cecil's composed, expectant face to Mr. Beebe's kindly, insightful gaze. Then, slowly, instinctively, her eyes drifted to the open window, to the vibrant, untamed green beyond. Her hand, almost without conscious thought, reached for the discarded volume of Ruskin on her lap, gently closing it. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor passed through her, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her lips parted, as if to speak, to finally articulate something true, something profoundly her own, however unformed, however imperfect. My view, narrator, the word lingered, a delicate bud poised to unfurl in the summer air. The world outside, the vibrant, unruly world of real grass and real sun, of genuine breezes and unscripted moments, seemed to beckon, a promise whispered on the wind. Lucy, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, felt a stirring of fierce, quiet resolve. The question was no longer what others wished her to see, or what society dictated she ought to perceive, but what she truly saw, and what she dared, finally, to claim as her own. The view, she realized with a jolt that was both terrifying and exhilarating, was hers to define, and the time for defining it had, unequivocally, arrived.